Everyone knows the story of the Great Chicago Fire. It appears in history books, documentaries are made about it, and more than a century later, people still remember the city that faced one of America's most famous disasters. But what if I told you that on that very same night, a far deadlier and far more mysterious event was unfolding just a few hundred miles away? An event so enormous that witnesses struggled to describe what they saw. An event that transformed entire communities in a matter of hours. Yet somehow, it almost disappeared from history.
Imagine standing in a small frontier town on an autumn evening in 1871. The air feels unusually warm. The wind seems stronger than normal. The forests surrounding the town whisper with strange intensity. At first, nothing seems unusual. Then, people begin noticing something in the distance. A glow. A growing glow, far beyond the trees. No one knows exactly what it means. No one knows how quickly events are about to unfold. And no one realizes they are about to witness one of the most astonishing and forgotten disasters in American history. Tonight, we travel to the small town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin, to uncover a story so dramatic that many historians still wonder why the world forgot it. A story of mystery, survival, and a night that forever changed a quiet frontier community. In 1871, Peshtigo was a growing town in northeastern Wisconsin. Nestled among vast forests and connected to the lumber industry, it was a place filled with opportunity. The town's sawmills operated day and night. Workers arrived seeking new lives. Businesses expanded, providing both resources and prosperity. But those same forests had experienced an unusually dry season. For months, rainfall had been scarce. The ground had become brittle. Leaves and branches covered the forest floor. Across the region, small fires were common. Farmers often burned brush to clear land. Logging operations generated sparks. And tiny fires frequently appeared and disappeared without causing major concern. People had grown accustomed to seeing smoke on the horizon. It was simply part of life.
Or so they believed. As October 8, 1871 approached, weather conditions began changing. Strong winds swept through the region. Temperatures remained unusually high, and the forests seemed to be waiting for something. No one knew exactly what, but several residents would later describe a feeling that something wasn't right, a feeling they couldn't explain. As evening arrived, scattered fires across the countryside continued to burn. At first, they seemed manageable. Nothing suggested that history was about to take a dramatic turn. Then something unexpected happened. The winds intensified. Small fires began merging. Separate patches of smoke became larger clouds. The glow on the horizon grew brighter and brighter and brighter. Residents stepped outside to investigate. Many expected to see another routine forest fire. Instead, they witnessed a scene unlike anything they had ever imagined. The sky itself appeared to change. Smoke rolled across the landscape. The air became increasingly difficult to see through, and an enormous wall of light seemed to be moving through the forests. People quickly realized this was no ordinary fire. The conditions had combined in a way few had ever witnessed. The powerful winds pushed flames through the forests with astonishing speed. Entire sections of woodland seemed to ignite almost simultaneously. Residents rushed to alert neighbors. Families gathered belongings.
business owners tried to protect their property. Yet the scale of the event continued growing. The town found itself surrounded by uncertainty, and time seemed to move faster with every passing minute. What made the Peshtigo Fire especially mysterious was the number of unusual reports that emerged afterward. Witnesses described hearing sounds like powerful storms. Others spoke of swirling columns of fire moving through the darkness. Some claimed the sky glowed with strange colors. Others said the heat could be felt from remarkable distances. Historians later explained that many of these observations were likely caused by the extraordinary weather conditions created by the fire itself. But for those who experienced it, the night felt almost unbelievable. As the event unfolded, residents searched desperately for safety. Many sought refuge near rivers and open spaces. Others gathered with family and friends. Throughout the night, uncertainty dominated every decision. No one knew what the next hour would bring. No one knew when conditions would improve. And no one knew how much of the town would remain by morning. Then, finally, daylight arrived. What people saw left them speechless. Entire sections of the landscape had been transformed. Familiar landmarks were gone. Roads were difficult to recognize. And the community faced the enormous challenge of rebuilding. News of the disaster slowly spread across the country. Yet something unusual happened. At the same time the Peshtigo Fire occurred, another major fire was capturing national headlines: the Great Chicago Fire. Newspapers focused much of their attention on Chicago. Stories from Wisconsin received far less coverage. As a result, the Peshtigo Fire gradually became known as the forgotten disaster, even though historians would later recognize it as one of the most significant fires in American history. For years, survivors shared their stories. Many described acts of courage, neighbors helping neighbors, families supporting one another, communities coming together despite overwhelming challenges. These stories became an important part of Peshtigo's legacy. Because while the fire transformed the town, it also revealed the resilience of the people who lived there. Rebuilding was not easy. Homes had to be reconstructed, businesses restarted, infrastructure restored. But the people of Peshtigo refused to abandon their community. Slowly, life returned. New buildings appeared, families rebuilt their futures, and the town continued moving forward. Today, more than 150 years later, the story of the Peshtigo Fire remains one of history's most remarkable forgotten events. Not only because of its scale, but because of the mystery that still surrounds it. How could such an enormous disaster become overshadowed by another event happening at the same time? Why do so few people know its name? And what other stories from history have quietly slipped from public memory? The Peshtigo Fire reminds us that history is filled with forgotten chapters, stories that deserve to be remembered. Stories that reveal both the power of nature and the resilience of ordinary people. And perhaps that is why the tale continues to fascinate historians today. Because hidden behind the headlines of 1871 was a story almost lost to time. A story waiting to be rediscovered. A story of a town. A mystery. And a night the world nearly forgot. The Great Chicago Fire became famous around the world, but the story of Peshtigo remains one of history's most overlooked mysteries. A reminder that some of the biggest events are not always the most remembered. If you enjoyed this forgotten chapter of history, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible true stories, mysteries, and historical events. And tell us in the comments, had you ever heard of the Peshtigo Fire before today? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. hidden in the shadows of history.